All right, pretty fired up. I saw a lot of you were out late last night, enjoying Waikiki, so that's pretty impressive. You're that fired up. What a great day yesterday. Tremendous panels, educational programs. The exhibit hall was packed with unbelievable to see all these ideas. Really excited this morning. We're going to kick it off with a little special event, but we got great speakers again today, a tremendous program. We'll start off with the Chief of Staff of the Korean Army, General Kim. He's going to give a great pitch. But before that, we're celebrating a little milestone. You heard a little bit about it yesterday. We really surged in membership. I mean, if you're not a member of AUSA, you're missing out. No doubt about it. I mean, we have people knocking on the door to become members. It's unbelievable. We hit 1 million members in 2023, from 250,000 to 1 million. And we just recently hit 2 million members. I think that's worth a little applause there, yeah. And what was really awesome about that is our 2 millionth member was exactly the type of member that we love. A young, unbelievably talented, dedicated NCO, was up in the 11th Airborne Brigade, was in the basic course as he's becoming an E5, and they talked about AUSA in the basic course of what the association does for soldiers, for families, for 76 years, formed by the Army, and really how critical it is to all that is done, mainly to help soldiers, but also link with industry. You can't get the best to our soldiers unless we're closely linked with industry today. So just imagine his surprise when we contacted him and said, you were the 2 millionth member. Pretty awesome. So we brought him and his lovely bride here to Hawaii to celebrate, and we're going to do a little presentation now to honor him for being the 2 millionth member. It's Sergeant Rick Adamson. Come on up, guys. Sure.
In appreciation for joining as our 2 millionth member, we wanted to present you with a little something to celebrate your induction into our AUSA family. So we heard a little birdie told us that you like to play electric guitar. So how fun would it be to give Sergeant Adamson a brand new, has never been test driven, Gibson Les Paul electric guitar. Woohoo! And of course, Sergeant Adamson, your wife said you like to play metal, so you really can't annoy your neighbors without an amp, so we got an amp to go with that. And on behalf of the AUS team, a little something to offset your expenses while you're here on the island.
How about another round of applause for our 2 millionth member? Simply put, we cannot do what we do without you, our members, all of you. So don't forget, if you're not a member, or even if you are and you want to check your status or upgrade your membership, visit the membership booth near the escalators. Ask for Angela Quidley, and Angela can review all of the great benefits that we offer, whether you're a member already or looking to join our ranks. This morning, I'd also like to thank World Fuel as our breakfast sponsor. Thank you very much, World Fuel. And please also join me in thanking our premier and general session sponsor, Govini. How about a round of applause for our sponsors? So this morning, we are privileged to hear from General Kim Gyu-ha, Chief of Staff of the Republic of Korea Army. He has dedicated his career to building a culture of safety, flexibility, and technological excellence, from commanding missile strategy to leading the entire Army through a period of rapid global change. His perspective on leadership and security is invaluable. Ladies and gentlemen, General Kim.
Aloha. Before I begin, General Haley, I would like to thank you for your kind introduction. On behalf of the ROK Army, I am very proud to stand before you today. Today is only the second day of LANPAC, but already from the first day, I was deeply inspired by lots of recent military transformation agenda, including innovation, modernization, and sustainability, and more. As soon as I arrived at Hawaii, I visited the fungible National Cemetery to pay tribute to the national heroes. On today's opportunity, I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude and respect towards our allies and partners who sacrificed their lives at the Korean War. I believe the Republic of Korea's freedom and prosperity are the heritage of sacred devotion and sacrifice, which are commemorated by the history. I'm fully confident this year's LANPAC will be the opportunity to reaffirm the trust with allies and partners, strengthen the future partnership, and thus further accelerate military transformation. In fact, transformation is not a new concept. Most countries are putting their own endless effort to innovate their military strength. I studied military strategy for 2 years at the Korean National Defense University, which indeed was the happiest time in my military career. Especially during that time, transformation was my key focus area. Since then, the Army transformation, in other words, change and innovation, have been the most important area of my interest throughout my career. There is one thing I always had in my mind while researching transformation. That is to have my own lens of viewing diverse military phenomena. This lens is not just a perspective, but a framework of analysis. Various practices, research, and dialogues like this deepens and expands the lens. Moreover, I personally think it is really helpful for visualizing the ideas that only exist in my mind. The ROK Army continued our transformation efforts under the framework of defense reform. And through the process of implementing this transformation, we obtained bright advancement along with precious lessons one by one. Today, I would like to address the ROK Army's effort for the transformation. First, I will go over our journey of change since 2018. And second, I will suggest several efforts I am piloting to accelerate this transformation as Chief of the Army. I think the important starting point of the ROK Army transformation was in 2018. Back then, the ROK Army concentrated all our capabilities devising and developing unique concept of transformative innovation tailored to the Army. This was under the objective of achieving the leapfrog development for 2040. This is when the Army Tiger was born. As you can see the slide, Army Tiger stands for Army Transformative Innovation of Ground Forces enhanced by Fourth Industrial Revolutionary Technology. The end state the Army aimed to reach through Army Tiger was to field intelligent, networked, and mobile combat capabilities. Army Tiger is composed of 3 combat systems. The main combat system is UAS and robot and individual combatants armed with personalized combat system named Warrior Platform. And to allow this UAS robot Warrior Platform to perform its function to the best extent, we must equip baseline combat systems such as integrated mobile communication system or mobile logistics support system. Since the out of Russian-Ukrainian war in 2022, the world is observing the fundamental shift of battlefield. Especially, UAS and robots are highlighted most significantly. However, everyone, no less than 6 years ago, the Republic of Korea Army already selected UAS and robots as main combat system and have put considerable effort for fielding. 7 years after adopting UAV and robots as the future capability of the ROK Army in 2018, I began my job as ROK Army Chief of Staff last September. The biggest agenda filled my mind, starting my current assignment, was how to accelerate the ROK Army transformation, which is also today's topic. I found the key element deciding the success of a transformation from the speed with executive ability. The technology is changing faster than ever, and the landscape of battlefield changing real time, unable to predict the future. Designing the direction of transformation itself was a challenge. How to transform the ROK Army? This was my biggest task given as the Chief of Staff of the Army. Before my current post as Chief, I observed how the Army transformed through my previous experiences as Director and Deputy Director at ROK JCS of J5, Deputy Commander of Ground Operations Command, and Commanding General of the Army Strategic Missile Command. Throughout the time, a concern always stayed in the corner of my heart, which was that no matter how outstanding the Army Tiger concept is, we will lose momentum while fielding if there is no technological support. In the end, the fear that transformation cannot succeed. Unfortunately, the stagnation of technological advancement and delay of fielding actually occurred, and this became the obstacle against speeding up the transformation. Since my inauguration, I evaluated Army Tiger from macro-level view. My own lens, mentioned earlier, was 3 strategic components. Asking myself 3 questions through the lens, I'm endlessly focusing on the journey towards success of transformation. First, are we focusing on the objective of having the formidable land force capabilities through timely fielding Army Tiger, the ends, as the core capability of the Army? And second, do we have the appropriate means to field and allocate Army Tiger, including technology, budget, and organization? And third, regarding ways to achieve the ends of Army Tiger. On top of the Army's own capability, are we well carrying on collaboration with government, industry, university, R&D, and solidarity, and cooperation with ally and partner nations? For the means and ways to reach the ends to come to a fruit, the speed of transformation is critical, and this is also aligned with the power to execute. The ROK government has a very strong will for defense reform, and we aim to gradually increase our defense budget to 3.5% of GDP. Moreover, efforts to expand government-led foster of the defense industry and liaise the development of defense technology and domestic defense industry ecosystem with defense reform are very active. In conjunction with such government policies, the Army has the best condition ever to accelerate the transformation. In such optimal environment, how would we accelerate transformation? For acceleration, the following are critical. 1, to form consensus among Army community, and 2, to seek the power of collective intelligence through free and open communication where the entire community engages based on such consensus. I focused on the key to AI development, reaching singularity point, which lies at the openness. The technological sources of AI were open, and massive number of people engaged with this openness. Then the fire of collective intelligence, just like the melting pot of innovation, started blazing. This came together into the singularity point. Then the flame ignited in my mind. All right, let us apply the spirit of the times and the trend of AI openness to the Army transformation. It was to boldly open the Army policy, particularly the representing brand Army Tiger, to our members and the people, and to adopt all the critiques and ideas. I came to a conclusion that the adoption based on bold disclosure is the shortcut to bringing success of transformation. The first part of acceleration since my inauguration was to reorganize Army Tiger to speed up the open spirit of the time. In accordance with the changing environment, we upgraded the content of Army Tiger and renamed it Army Tiger Plus. This is also part of enhancing the interest and immersion of the Army members, just as how we refer to the block concept to bringing evolution to our forces. I thought that the Army Tiger should also have a concept of evolution and share this to our Army community. The core concept of Army Tiger Plus is to reflect the changing battlefield environment, emergence of new technology like AI, and rapidly advancing speed of technology, and resolutions for overcoming diverse challenges facing the Army since we launched Army Tiger in 2018. In other words, Army Tiger Plus aims to reinforce operational capability in new areas along with rapid technological development, including AI, UAS, counter-UAS, robotics, and SIMA. Army Tiger Plus also intends to remarkably improve the combat capability of tip-of-spear units, adopting intelligent smart unit, spatial innovation, synthetic LVC training system to this unit. Second part of acceleration is to form consensus among the Army community and furthermore, to empower our members so they can share about Army Tiger to the public by themselves. If a policy could only be promoted by a policy planner, I believe this policy cannot succeed. When our members who feel the need for such innovation policy understand the policy easily, the success becomes an inevitable reality. With such logic, we thought it is crucial for the Army members to empathize with Army Tiger Plus and reflect their own opinion. Thus, the general officers and policy planners, including myself, are focusing on expanding the opportunity to directly explain the Army's transformation policies like Army Tiger Plus to our own members. We are adopting diverse measures to elaborate on Army Tiger Plus to all ranks across the Army and propel the consensus. On top of the Army community, we are also deeply investing in comprehending and convincing the working groups and key decision makers of institutions related to force development. Moreover, singing is believing, so I came up with an idea. How can we demonstrate the visualized future tip-of-spear unit armed with 2040 Army Tiger Plus as soon as possible? Therefore, the ROK Army is proceeding the visualization of 2040, implementing it onto pilot units by 2027 to our full capacity. It is to manifest the future Army 2040 to all the people, including our members, and make the approaching future tangible. This aspiring policy is what we call visualization of the Army Tiger Plus. Great policy remains as empty slogan if it cannot root in the field. The ROK Army transformation is not a one-way order going down from top. We would like to shape the transformation through two-way dialogues with the service members on the site. When the collective intelligence combined with liberal and open communication and soldiers' will to transform explodes, then we could finally implement the genuine transformation with speed. The third pillar of acceleration is, as you know, budget. As everyone here would agree, securing the budget is essential for military transformation to build a technology-based military strength. No great vision can thrive without financial support, and scaling the fund could be ultimately achieved through visible accomplishment. We cannot experiment with massive budget without ensuring the outcome of policy. Therefore, the ROK Army is executing budget expansion strategy. The strategy visualizes and promotes the objective of long-term policy from short-term experiments with small funding. Then it will be tied large-scale budget. We concentrate with technology or capability on the Army's verification and experiment unit in the short term. Then, once we confirm desired outcome, we gradually scale the application to more units. Going forward, we apply technology or capability across the entire Army. Through such a process, we are endeavoring to timely apply rapidly changing high-tech across the entire process from acquisition to employment of weapon systems. The fourth element of acceleration is sharing ally and partners transformation and mutual solidarity and cooperation with them. Last year, I was deeply impressed by the U.S. Army Transformation Initiative, AGI, and sketched by the former U.S. Chief of Staff of the Army, General George. At the time, General George disseminated a command message covering a comprehensive reform encompassing all areas, including combat training, organization, and acquisition process, built upon Army Secretary Discourse Initiative. And in the end of 2025, I had a chance to meet the U.S. Secretary of the Army and U.S. Chief of Staff of the Army in person and listen to their transformation initiatives and valuable experiences. The U.S. Army almost felt like the icon of military reform. It inspired and stimulated me very deeply. Transformation in contact, transformation from plan, transformation with concept initiatives are very useful when designing and implementing the transformation roadmap, explaining the policy to Army members, and connecting short, mid, and long-term transformation items. Also, the ROK is continuously proceeding strategic defense industry cooperation with allies and partners. Strategic defense cooperation is crucial not only for merely facilitating foreign military sales, but more towards reinforcing the shared deterrence. The ROK Army believes the solidarity and cooperation between allies and partners had a huge impact on our Army's evolution. In other words, the ROK Army's growth rooted from long-lived communication, training, and sharing of technology with the allies and partners. Transformation through partnership, you and us are the vivid witness. The ROK Army is sharing experience of innovation on high-tech capabilities, sustainment, operation, and training through diverse exchange and cooperation. This includes activities such as Korean Army International Course for educating and training ground weapon systems, Korea-ASEAN International Forum on Logistics, combined KHTC, combined exercise and military consultative meetings. Especially through Korea-ASEAN International Forum on Logistics last October, we established a network for expanding wartime and peacetime sustainment capabilities via dialogues in diverse areas. These include follow-on logistics support and technological information exchange of key equipment such as K9, K2 mutual participation in combined logistics training, and BDU export through local production. Additionally, we are reinforcing coordination against unconventional threats, including humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, and pandemics coverage. This April, Army chiefs from 4 Commonwealth countries, including the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, also visited our Army headquarters, reaffirming mutual partnership and deepening our cooperation and solidarity. I also talked with the battalion commander and the troops returned from combined training in the NTC of US. I was inspired by lots of ideas and initiatives for improving the ROK Army training system. Particularly impressive was how motivated and immersed to the training they were. As such, the solidarity and cooperation between ally and partners brings great synergy to the ROK Army transformation, and especially provides us with a large spectrum of perspectives and motivations. The ROK Army will continue our efforts for transformation and innovation through diverse forms of solidarity and cooperation with the ally and partners. This concludes my keynote on our journey of transformation and efforts to further accelerate transformation. In 2018, we started tests and trials with Army Tiger. In 2025, we upgraded it into Army Tiger Plus. We are boosting trust on transformation through our communities, consensus, and collective intelligence. Financing strategy, solidarity, and cooperation with ally and partners are also driving forces to speed up and transformation. We cannot achieve transformation only by ourselves. Closely, we did it together with our members and more broadly possible thanks to all of you. And I'm fully confident that because we are together, transformation will be even faster. The Republic of Korea Army will never stop our journey towards transformation. Through this effort, we'll have a complete deterrence on the Korean Peninsula, and going forward, ensure peace and stability of the Indo-Pacific together with you. Thank you. Mahalo. I would be happy to answer any questions.
총장님 반갑습니다. 전인범 예비역 중장입니다. Good morning, General Kim. 인범 전 retired ROK Army. 총장님 현재 우리 육군이 인도 태평양 지역의 많은 우방국들, 특히 일본과 어떤 방향으로 발전을 시키고 계신지 궁금합니다. So my question to you is, the Republic of Korea Army, what direction is it going towards the allies within the Indo-Pacific, especially with Japan?
예, 전임범 장군님 질문에 감사드립니다. 제 긴장을 좀 풀어주시려고 먼저 질문을 하신 것 같습니다.
General John, thanks for your
Mike, please.
General John, thanks for your question. I think it was to relieve my nervousness.
질문에 답변을 드리면 한일 관계는 매우 중요하다고 생각을 합니다. 그런 측면에서 양 정상과 또 한국 국방장관, 일본 방위상 장관이 만났습니다.
I believe the relationship between ROK and Japan is very important, and in that sense, the two summits between our two countries and the Minister of the Defense have met.
그만큼 한일 관계의 중요성을 충분히 인식을 하고 있고, 또 한일 간의 교류 협력을 육군 차원에서 어떻게 할 건지도 국방부와 논의를 진행하고 있어서 앞으로 한일 육군과의 관계는 많이 더 활발해질 것으로 저는 기대하고 있습니다.
And the armies between our two countries also share that recognition, and in that sense, we're expanding our exchanges and activities between our two armies and the Japanese self-ground defense force, and we're having active discussion between our Minister of Defense as well, and thus the relationship between the army and the ground defense force will also be expanded.
오늘 제가 또 일본 육상 막류장님과도 만나서 대담을 갖게 돼 있습니다. 그 대담을 통해서 보다 생산적인 그런 대화가 이루어질 것으로 기대를 하고 있고, 또 인태사의 그 육군사령부의 역할도 매우 중요하고, 특히 이 랜팩이 또 매우 중요한 의미를 가지고 있다고 생각합니다.
And today I have a bilateral dialogue planned with General Aisa, the chief of the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force, and I'm expecting we could have a productive dialogue together with him. And the role of the Indo-PACOM, and especially the Army's role in this region, is very important. So I'm expecting a lot from this LANPAC.
또 다른 질문 있으면 질문 받겠습니다. Any questions, please?
Hey, General Kim, thank you again for this presentation. Mick Bednarik, Floor Corporation, quick question for you. You've highlighted an incredible amount of transformation initiatives, partnering with not only allies and partners, but certainly for us in the United States. New equipment, technologies, artificial intelligence, all of those enablers that will help us realize training and readiness for the long-term future. A big concern has always been interoperability. What do you see, sir, as the biggest challenges that you face there on the peninsula, along with allies and partners, specifically to ensure the interoperability of us working together maintains the strength that we need? Thank you.
예, 그 좋은 질문에 감사를 드립니다. 이 상호 운용성에 우리 또 한반도의 여러 우리 이 주한미군을 포함한 유엔 사업가들이 한반도에서 전력이 투사될 예정입니다.
Thank you for your great questions. And regarding the interoperability in the Korean Peninsula, in case of contingency, lots of countries will send their forces, including the forces from the USFK and the UNC member states.
상호 운용성에 관한 이제 여러 가지 저희들의 관심사가 매우 많고, 여기에는 뭐 C2 시스템이라든지 커맨드 앤 컨트롤 시스템이라든지, 또 서로 다른 무기 체계를 어떻게 상호 합리적으로 운영한다든지, 또 뭐 교리적인 측면에서 여러 가지 이제 제약사항들이 있습니다.
And regarding interoperability, the Republic of Korea Army has diverse interests in diverse areas, including the C2 systems and the weapons, employment of the weapon systems, and also limitations on our doctrines.
그러한 부분들을 이제 해소하는데 매우 중요한 것은 이제 저는 뭐 훈련이라든지 연습 이런 것들이 매우 중요하고, 최근에는 첨단 과학 기술이 강조되고 있지만 그것보다 더 중요한 것은 결국은 사람이라고 생각을 합니다.
And to mitigate these, we're conducting lots of activities and initiatives, including trainings and exercise. And recently, the importance of the high technology is also being emphasized. But what's the most important thing is the people.
그래서 사람 간의 교류와 또 이렇게 만나서 어떤 이해를 넓히고 이런 것들이 저는 오히려 과학기술 측면이나 시스템보다 더 앞서서 더 많은 이런 연대와 협력 부분에 큰 기여를 하고, 그것이 결국은 상호 운영성에도 기여할 것으로 그렇게 생각을 하고 있습니다.
And through practical and actual exchanges between people, we're expanding our mutual comprehension and understanding. And on top of the sharing of science or technology or the C2 system and these kind of technological stuff, building and expanding the solidarity and cooperation between people with regards to interoperability is the most important thing.
That's why I think people first is number one priority to achieve interoperability.
Sir,
yeah.
Dan Roper from Association of United States Army. As you discussed the singularity point in transformation, that struck me as being an extremely important concept. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more and discuss the challenges of maintaining the virtue of achieving the singularity point?
예, 대단히 좋은 질문에 감사드립니다. AI에 제가 주목한 것은 특이점을 어떻게 도달했을까에 관한 것이었습니다.
Thank you for the great question. And regarding the AI and explosion of the development of technology, I was interested in how it reached the singularity points.
제가 일부 말씀을 드렸지만 그것은 결국 개방, 오픈니스였거든요. 그 오픈니스를 통해서 컬렉티브 인텔리전스가 가능했습니다.
And as I mentioned earlier in my speech, the key was the openness. And through opening the sources, we were able to reach the collective intelligence.
저는 저희 육군 구성원들에게 AI 발전의 원동력을 비유할 때 혁신의 용광로라고 표현을 합니다.
And so when I want to use the analogy for our Army transformation and the share among our Army members, I wanted to use this singularity point analogy to our members.
결국은 저희가 2018년에 아미 타이거라는 좋은 개념을 갖고 추진했지만 우리 육군 구성원들에게 아미 타이거 정책을 설명하고 이들의 집단지성을 활용하는 노력에는 부족한 점이 있었습니다.
And in 2018, although we commenced our efforts for the Army Tiger Initiative with the concept, we weren't enough to spread the message enough and make them understand the initiative among our members.
제가 키노트 스피치에도 말씀을 드렸지만 우리 육군의 구성원들이 아미 타이거 플러스를 설명할 수 있게 하기 위해서 이들에게 집단지성이 힘을 기를 수 있도록 아미 타이거 정책을 우리 장군단 주도로 해서 설명하고 대화하고 이들과 트랜스포메이션 컨택 개념을 적용해서 현장에서의 의견들을 받고 그들에게 피드백을 주고 있습니다.
So, in order to accelerate our initiatives and our projects for our Army Tiger, and to make them enable our own members to be capable of sharing our Army Tiger Plus initiative, we're making thus we're aiming to achieve the collective intelligence among our members. So, I will be asking our general officers to share and explain the concept of Army Tiger Plus to our members, and explained our transformation initiatives in the field, which is very similar to the U.S. Army's initiative for transformation in contact. So we're trying to get the idea from the field and explain the concept to our members at the field.
그래서 결국은 우리 육군의 집단지성의 힘을 아미 타이거 플러스라는 정책에 잘 연결시켜서 저희가 목표로는 2040년에 엔드 스테이트를 달성하기 위해서 하고 있습니다.
So as a conclusion, we're trying to achieve a collective intelligence from the field through our Army Tiger Plus, and to make the 2040 Army's future be visible to our members, and the end state of this Army Tiger Plus initiative visible and tangible to our members.
Sir, thank you so much for being here. Please give General Kim a big round of applause.
Thank you again, General Kim, for sharing your vision and your remarks. Now we're going to turn to our panel titled Accelerated Transformation, How Partnering Enhances Rapid Change. We will look at how collaborative ecosystems are driving the next wave of modernization. Leading this panel is Brigadier General Retired Mike Tarza. Brigadier General Tarza is the Director of the Army Accounts Team for Raytheon Land and Air Defense Systems. A seasoned commander at multiple levels, he notably served as the 3 Corps Chief of Staff, commander of the West Point Garrison in Fort Carson, Colorado, the first American to serve as DCG to the 3rd UK Division in England, as well as senior staff positions within the Department of Defense. He holds a master's degree in business administration from Pacific Lutheran University and a Bachelor of Science from West Point. Mike, the floor is yours.
Oh, shoot. Have that removed. Sorry about that, Mike.
Terrific. Good morning. I'm Mike Tarsa. I'm the Director of Army Accounts at Raytheon. Welcome to this morning's panel, Accelerated Transformation, How Partnering Enhances Rapid Change. On behalf of my panel participants, let me thank you for being here this morning. This is a timely panel. The U.S. Army is in the throes of modernization as we continue to train across the Indo-PACOM with our partner nations. Earlier this month, USARPAC Commanding General Ron Clark wrote, USARPAC is at the forefront of transformation, leveraging advanced technologies, resilient logistics, and collaborative partnerships. Before we talk about Army transformation and the importance of partner nations, let me introduce our distinguished guests. Started on the far right, a good friend is General Hilbert. Lieutenant General Joe Hilbert is the Commandant General of 8th Army in Korea. General Hilbert previously served as the CG of the 11th Airborne Division in Alaska, was the Director of Force Development, Army G8, the CG of the 7th Army Training Command, and Deputy Commandant General of the 3rd Infantry Division. His notable staff positions include Chief of Operations, 18th Airborne Corps, Chief of Operational Fires at the Joint Special Operations Command, and aide-de-camp for the CG, U.S. Army Security Assistance Command. Seated to my right, we've got General Dugan. Major General James Dugan is the Commandant General of U.S. Army Japan. He is an exceptional armor officer, developed under Project Warrior at the National Training Center. Major General Dugan's previous assignments include DCG and Senior Commander for the 4th Infantry Division and Fort Carson. He was the first commander of the Force Security Forces Assistance Brigade, executive officer to the commander of Resolute Support, and the commander of 2nd Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division. To General Dugan's left, Major General Ali Kingsbury. General Kingsbury was appointed Director of Land Warfare at the British Army Land Warfare Center in December of 2025. Earlier in his career, he gained experience in Northern Ireland, Macedonia, Kabul, and Helmand. General Kingsbury commanded 2nd Para from 2013 to 2016 and served as the UK's Deputy Commandant General of our 82nd Airborne Division. After his 2-star promotion, he was assigned again with the United States Army, this time with 5th Corps in Poland as the Deputy Commandant General Maneuver. And finally, we have Colonel German. Colonel Wade German is the commander of the 3rd Multi-Domain Task Force, another tremendously experienced field artilleryman. Colonel German previously served as the program manager for the Saudi Arabian National Guard Modernization Program. Before that, he commanded 210th Field Artillery Brigade at Camp Casey, served as the 8th Army Chief of Operations in Korea from 2020 to 2024, and the commander of 2nd Battalion, 11th Field Artillery, on time. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you very much for being here this morning. Let's begin with land power and set the stage for this panel discussion if we could. Thanks to prioritized investment in Army modernization efforts, the Army is better postured to shape the Indo-PACOM AOR and deter China. Former USARPAC Commandant General Charlie Flynn can be credited with solidifying the Army's role in Indo-PACOM. General Flynn created a greater understanding of the Army's integral role in the Pacific. Specifically, focus on force projection, partnership with other countries to build capacity, and long-range fires to hold enemy targets at range. A 2019 RAND Corporation study suggested long-range Army fires could address critical targets in China, such as command and control sites, airfields, missile sites, and ports, as well as defend against Chinese aggression. The study recommended the Army do 2 things to establish greater relevancy in the Pacific. First, develop a long-range surface-to-surface missile system with a range of 1,000 kilometers or more to strike mainland targets. Secondly, develop a land-based anti-ship missile for Chinese ships. Informed by this and other studies, the Army has since established Portfolio Acquisition Executive Fires, or PAE Fires, to integrate, develop, and field offensive and defensive fires systems. PAE Fires is part of the broader Army transformation initiative to create unity of effort across the most critical warfighting functions. Other portfolio acquisition executives introduced this year include command and control, counter command and control, ground maneuver, air maneuver, agile sustainment and ammunition, and layered protection, plus chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. Concurrently, multi-domain task forces were created to integrate long-range fires and effects for development capabilities to include hypersonic weapons, a mid-range capability that can fire Tomahawks or SM-6 called Typhon, and the Aegis command and control system, the Army's successor to the highly successful Patriot air defense system is called the Lower Tier Air and Missile Defense Sensor, or LTAMS. While Patriot has been the backbone of Army missile defense for nearly 50 years, LTAMS is now in production to bolster 360-degree capability for U.S. forces in our 19 Patriot nations. It has extended scan, greater track and volume of cruise, ballistic, and aerial threats. THAAD and IBCS are other key systems that round out an integrated and layered air missile defense. For the Army, it is all about getting Army forces and mobile shooters inside the enemy's anti-access and aerial denial bubbles before conflict. For example, in the last 2 years, the Army exercised the mid-range capability Typhon from the Philippines. Efforts are underway to position units to intercept enemy air and missile defense threats, target and engage enemy surface ships, and conduct long-range strikes if necessary. In doing so, the Army can effectively create friendly anti-access and aerial denial bubbles that enable joint force mobility, maneuver, and the ability to strike. Continuous transformation ensures U.S. Army Pacific is ready to deter adversaries, reassure allies and partners through innovation and adaptability. Continuous transformation enables U.S. Army Pacific to accelerate the fielding of next-generation systems, enhancing interoperability with allies and partners, and adapting to the challenges of the Indo-Pacific area. By integrating emerging technologies and streamlining processes, USARPAC strengthens its deterrence posture and builds readiness to respond to crisis or conflict. Transformation gives soldiers the tools and capabilities needed to succeed in a complex, multi-domain environment. So how do we optimize the Army's modernization efforts? Continue to deter our adversaries and remain ready to defeat aggression. We do that largely through complex, multi-domain training exercises as an Army, joint, and coalition force. We do that through the capabilities of our valued partner nations. This panel will further investigate how partnering enhances rapid change. Having now talked about the defining role of the Army in the Pacific, Army modernization, let's shift to opening statements from our panel participants for their thoughts on transformation and the tremendous value that partner nations bring to our efforts. General Hilbert, I'd like to start with you, sir, if I could, on your opening thoughts.
Thanks, Mike. You know, for 8th Army, we've been in the Pacific since inception, beginning with the amphibious 8th of World War II, and then what we're most known for is our time on the peninsula, you know, since 1950. So we're over 75 years on the peninsula with our Korean allies defending. The reality is, though, when you look at that 75-year history, it has not been static. I think if you looked at some, or if some looked in on the peninsula, they may perceive it to be static, a static defense, static But the reality is we've been in a transformation process or an evolutionary process for the past 75 years. And, you know, I think if you were to poll most Army officers, even those who haven't been on the peninsula, they would recognize right away the motto of Kachi Kachi Da, you know, we go together. And you know, that is our motto, but it's more than just our motto. It's more than what we put on a coin or on a bumper sticker. It's the reality of we go together with our Korean allies, and it's humbling to follow General Kim as he talks about his transformation efforts, but then how we work together to both transform and modernize both the ROK Army, but then what I've got my responsibilities, modernization of the 8th Army on the peninsula. You know, when General Brunson spoke yesterday on his comments on modernization and on transformation, he mentioned two things that I think are kind of important to highlight about how we're thinking about transformation on the peninsula and modernization. And so I'll start with a little introduction there to say something that's probably controversial to most of the folks on the other side of this divider. So if we look over there, we've got the greatest defense industries in the world creating some of the best equipment that's known on the planet right now, incredible advances in technology. But if all we do is we chase that big M, that big material solution, there's no panacea on the other side of that divider. Right. We know that a better trained force with lesser equipment will always prevail over a poorly trained force with the most modern equipment. That poorly trained force, it's pearls before swine, candidly. And General Brunson mentioned a little bit about this when he talked about the two I's, you know, that we've got to be investors in new thought, and we've got to be instigators of new thought in the way that we transform. So what does that look like on the peninsula, and what are some of the things that he talked about, aside from the materiel developments that you highlighted, that certainly are additive to that incredibly trained, well-trained force? Two that immediately come to mind that he mentioned was the Regional Sustainment Hub and the Multi-Domain Task Force, and how we're thinking about multi-domain operations. We have positional advantage on the peninsula. You've seen that in General Brunson's testimony. We've said that for years. We are the only Army force on the Asian continent. We sit in the first island chain. And what we can do with that regional sustainment hub that's not locked into the peninsula, but is larger to the larger, what we provide for the larger joint force in Indo-PACOM, certainly in Northeast Asia, but across Indo-PACOM, is ability to sustain the fight forward, the ability to stay in the fight forward, and the ability to have that positional advantage and use it to our advantage in the theater. The second piece of that, and we can certainly delve into more on what that regional sustainment hub looks like and how we're thinking about it. A lot of it ties in with the East Up map that you heard General Brunson reference and that he's used in testimony and even in this in LANPAC, I think a couple of years ago when he laid it out. The second one is what we're looking at as far as in multi-domain capabilities. And Wade will certainly talk to this in much more depth, but we see this as that unique capability of things that we can provide for the defense of the peninsula, but also for the defense of the United States from the peninsula and in that first island chain, those capabilities that otherwise wouldn't be there. And that ability to leverage all domains from a land-based force, but be able to access all those domains to give us and to maximize that positional advantage, and then give us, again, a first mover advantage, if you will, in the abilities there. So those are just a couple of the ways that we're thinking about transforming the way that we think on the peninsula. We're not a landlocked force. We're certainly not bound to the peninsula. We certainly provide forces to pathways and to other operations in the Pacific. But that East Up map, that transformation of thought in how we look at the problem set, then leveraging the capabilities that we can get in there. If we look at the regional sustainment hub, some of the additive manufacturing capabilities and other partnerships, bringing in the multi-domain task force and what we can do there with a multi-domain task force from the Asian continent in the peninsula. Those are just some of the ways that we are looking at how do we continue to modernize 8th Army so that the 8th Army of 2027, 28 is not the 8th Army of 23, 24, or 25. So with that, we'll look forward to further questions, and we can certainly delve into any of those topics a little bit deeper.
No, so very well said, General. And as you said, it's not simply the materiel, it's the integration of new thought, it's the integration of our systems, it's positional advantage, and it's the advent of these new capabilities to optimize our efforts. Staying with that, if I could, Colonel German, over to you for your opening comments, sir.
Yes, sir. So, rapid innovation, transformation, and transforming it while we're building, operating, and training out in the Indo-Pacific is built into the DNA of MDTFs. From our early conception in 2017 with the activation of first MDTFs, it has been one of the strengths that we have brought with these organizations. We share rapidly amongst each other all of the MDTFs, what we do, what equipment we have, what our structure should look like, and there has been continuous evolutions of that from day one. And that's really the strength of our organizations. We are not hindered by sometimes decades and years of what an organization used to look like. That could have been a hindrance. Sometimes not having years of a history and a culture to build upon for a new organization can be challenging. But the MDTFs have really brought this on, and it's one of our strengths. It's who we are, and that is really empowering for us. Every soldier recognizes that when they come into an MDTF, and it's why many soldiers and officers and leaders want to be a part of our organizations, because they know we have that ability to quickly, rapidly come up with new ideas, get those ideas out to the industry, and help them come back to us, what we should look like, what we should be doing, what our operating concepts are. It's not coming from people like me. It's coming from the incredible soldiers that we have inside of these formations and our ability to share across the MDTF community and the broader U.S. Army as well. We learn from them, they learn from us, and it's accelerating our opportunity and the change that we come. One small example of this, of how we do it physically internal, is we have a small innovations team that we take out of hide from great soldiers that have good ideas, that want to bring things up to us on, hey, what's working and what's not working. We have a small lab inside of our motor pool with some small 3D printers and things, and we can take either equipment that's given to us from industry, we can play with it, we can break it, we can say what's good with it or not, we can try to develop something ourselves, and then we can try and bring that back and say, how do we make it better, or how do we use this, or what's a better way to do this. We leverage that then by working with other formations, the concepts development teams from USERPAC, which helps drive us and get us more funding to be able to do that. And then other units like 25th Infantry Division here in Hawaii with their Forge capability, which is a little additive information and additive ideas with more capability as well, that we continue to accelerate what we can do, what they can do, and learn from each other much faster. It's not just a slogan for the MDTFs, it never has been. It's been the value of where we've come from and who we are today, and it's part of what we continue to do.
Yeah. No, you bring me back to last night's discussion. You and I quickly talked at General Clark's luau. I congratulated you on having command of an MDTF and quickly reminded you, whether it's General Jim Eisenhower or General Bernie Harrington, the line of people that are crossing that new gap and figuring out what MDTFs are capable of is incredibly distinguished. So I appreciate your humility. I know it's not just your soldiers who are bringing capability forward to our commanders, but thanks for what you're doing, Colonel German.
Yes, sir.
General Dugan, if I could ask your thoughts, sir, as we begin this discussion.
Sure, thank you. One team in USERPAC Ohana family, we are very much in line with the Army Transformation Initiative and also the three priorities of General Clark: people, partnership, and Prevail, and especially the first two, people and partnership. And in that, I think I provide a unique perspective, if not an appreciation for the relationship that we have had, Army and Japan, actually over the last 56 years. My connection to the Army and Japan actually started in '69 as a Navy brat born in Yokosuka Naval Base. My dad told the story a long time ago that I was being carted through the hallways with Army soldiers being medevaced out of Vietnam, and then my mom relayed the same story. So amazing connection. And then in 1987, I graduated from Camp Zama, For those that don't know, USRJ is in Camp Zama, so I'm at the same location. And in 2006, I had the pleasure of working for First Corps as the lead planner for all things Pacific in Yamasakura 51 in Japan. So that relationship has continued to flourish. And what I've been able to see over the last 20 years, comparing and contrast from 2006 to 2026, is the acceleration in the transformation across all three priorities that General Clark has laid out for us, specifically in people. Command Sergeant Major Langley. So I'm a Navy brat. My dad was enlisted for 30 years. My grandpa, second wave D-Day, served in the Pacific. My brother enlisted. Soft spot in my heart for non-commissioned officers. Sergeant Major Langley came on board, and the key to transformation is creating that warfighting culture for us in Japan. Rich history. We've been there since World War II, Army and Pacific, very close tie to 8th Army. And in 1953, United States Army Japan was established. So what started as a bilateral relationship between the Japanese military, self-defense force, and the U.S. Army has continued to grow. So in 2006, when I would do exercises, it was very much swivel chair, computers, very static. And now that we see multi-domain operations coming in, as the Set the Theater Force, R4 for United Forces Japan, and also the bilateral coordination element in Japan for the Army, not just for USFJ, but United States Army Pacific, we have been able to increase our relationship and our partnership with the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force. And the last few years has been no different. And in the Prevail front, we'll talk a little more later, but to be able to support the joint force by bringing in multi-domain capabilities, by increasing, so the Indo-PACOM and USRPAC leadership, Army leadership is invested heavily and continues to invest heavily in Army in Japan. Increasing our set the theater capabilities with watercraft, bringing in multi-domain operations. We were closely with Wade. Obviously with 8th Army, we have a close relationship. So the military has always focused on the multilateral, multinational, joint partnership, and that is our foundation for the transformation. And I look forward to being part of that. Truly a blessing. Thank you.
Terrific. It's amazing, and James and I spoke again at General Clark's luau. You talk about uniquely suited for this command, and I know General Brown feels the same way. The Army continues to get it right, placing the most talented people where they can do the most good for our Army and a joint force. Lastly, I'd like to go to General Kingsbury, and sir, your thoughts on modernization and, of course, allies and partners and how these things benefit each other, sir.
Yeah, Mike, thank you, and thanks very much for the invitation to be on the panel. It's great to see a number of old friends in the audience. There's a worryingly high number of people I used to work for. I thought I'd be pretty safe out here, but so I just have to watch myself slightly. So the British Army, we're obviously fairly small players in terms of numbers in the Pacific. But the people we do have here in the events we take part in are really important to us. You saw yesterday the winning team for the patrol competition. Just thought I'd mention that. They come from the battalion of Gurkhas in the British Army who are permanently stationed in Brunei. In Brunei, we also have our jungle warfare school. I would offer genuinely, I think that's one of the best jungle warfare training facilities in the world. We run some of our SAS selection there. It's a really important series of activities for us. We take part in a number of other events, Talisman Sabre, Vigilant Isles in Japan, all those sorts of things are extremely beneficial to us. A little interesting factoid, which is a bit trivial, but sort of makes the point. Of all the Five Eyes capital cities, the one that is closest in a straight line to Beijing is London, which is a little counterintuitive in some ways, and in and of itself, it's sort of neither here nor there. But it makes the point that, particularly when you start talking about the Arctic ice disappearing and all of that type of stuff, that even if you're from a nation and an army that's focused mostly on Russia and Ukraine, they're obviously in our backyard, you mustn't forget the Pacific. And so all of our links diplomatically, militarily are extremely important to us. And to pick up on the sort of point and one of the themes of the conversation about sort of positioning forward, defending forward, Mike, you mentioned it, about being able to fight from inside the A2AD. I've heard US Marine colleagues talk about fighting inside the WES. That stuff is as relevant to Estonia and the Middle East as it is here. And to pick up on one of General Brunson's really good points from yesterday, the tyranny of the physics means that the traditional relationship between clear indicators and warnings, political decision-making, and movement of mass does not work in the context that we're faced with today. If we cannot fight really hard early from inside the A2AD bubbles, as relevant to St. Petersburg and Murmansk as it is to the island chains over here, then we will lose. In my view, it's as simple as that. Now, there's a number of things about pre-positioning stocks and so on that we've spoken about, but one of the critical things to making that work is partnerships. And if you can't rely on the people around you, whether it's readiness now or it's transformation, modernization, then things will fall apart very quickly. And some of that is about formal diplomatic alliances, capital A, treaty obligations. Some of that is about military doctrinal command relationships. Most of it, in my view, is about what we might call handshake con. It doesn't matter what your official relationship is, what your actual obligations are. It's a mutual trust and respect and a shared equity in the endeavor, in the challenges that you're faced with, and that's what helps us drive forward. And then my final point before we sort of kick off Q&A and so on is, and I can sort of make this point as someone representing a smaller army from sort of inside the U.S. Army. I think I've spent almost a fifth of my career in some way or other embedded with the U.S. Army, so I've got a bit of skin in the game, and I can say some things to you that some of you guys can't. The pride you should have in your army being the bearer system across the globe of all of those relationships. It is unbelievable. And I remember sitting in my last job in USARAF, Cubs, twice a week with General Donahue, General Williams, looking at some of that laydown. I looked to my right, General Hilbert and I served together in the 82nd. We jumped together into Latvia. One of Joe's badly rigged heavy drop platforms caught fire, set fire to the drop zone. I thought Eric Carilla was going to kill both of us. And we've all got those stories. And so many of them come back to the U.S. Army and what you offer across the globe. She ran out before I could make a joke about cricket, but General Rose King is the Chief of Staff of the Army of the New Zealand Army. She and I were at Leavenworth together in Staff College. So even if it's not me to an American, the systems that you guys have across the globe provide such an important bearer system for all of those vital relationships. So thank you for that. I look forward to where the conversation goes.
Well, General, so kind, and obviously your comments are so well received. And as someone that stood in the ranks of the 3rd UK, I say thank you for all that your nation provides. Tremendous soldiers and tremendous force. Gentlemen, what I'd like to start off with, and General Hilbert, if I could come to you, sir, the 8th Army. It's recognized for its fight tonight preparedness. We think about that often on the Korean Peninsula. Reportedly, you're establishing a regional sustainment hub and increase and support the Pacific pathways. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that. And it just so happens one of my mentors, General Mick Bednarik, his thoughts were also aligned with that. What does that mean in terms of Army pre-position stock? What does that mean in terms of maintenance, repair, and overhaul? And then also important, how can the defense industrial base help your efforts, General?
Yeah, so John Brunson spoke a little bit to this yesterday, but I'll start with your fight tonight. You're exactly right. We do live in a dangerous neighborhood, and we do have to be ready to respond to crisis at any point in time, and we watch that very closely. It would, and I think that's what leads to the misconception that all Korean forces, or all the forces that we have on the PIN, are myopically focused on one problem set. But that's short-sighted, right? What that regional sustainment hub is able to do for us, it does sustain the fight on the peninsula without a doubt, and that's where its genesis comes from, is the 19th ESC. But the reality is if we just focused on sustaining 8th Army on the peninsula with the 19th ESC, what a tragic waste of resources available to the Joint Force in the entire Indo-Pacific. So what does that look like? Well, you're right. Army pre-positioned stocks, brigade combat team sets that on the peninsula available for a force to rapidly flow in. You know, I commanded the 11th Airborne Division, the Army's Arctic Division, but we knew in the 11th Airborne Division, as an example, that we couldn't just do windows. We couldn't say, if it's not minus 20 or below, we don't go, right? The 11th Airborne Division's got to be, it's in the Global Force Management Pool and available to go anywhere. And when they go somewhere, the SUS-V or the CAC-V that they have and the Arctic equipment might not be the equipment set they need, but a highly trained force that falls in on an equipment set available to them in the peninsula, that is strategic flexibility. And that's one of the things the Regional Sustainment Hub provides. And that's not just specifically for the 11th Airborne Division, but that's for any force that needs to rapidly get into theater, whether it's employed on the peninsula or somewhere else in the first island chain. The ability, as General Brunson mentioned yesterday, to repair equipment and to do the maintenance, repair, and overhaul on the peninsula versus returning it multiple days to go back to the continental United States and back forward. Building that rock island on the peninsula, critical, because now we cut the risk out of the equation. As he mentioned, the tip lid flow at risk just by submarines and somebody challenging sea lanes. Well, if you don't have to cross the Pacific and you can just come to the peninsula, or we can go forward, that's strategic flexibility that's available to the Joint Force. So those are some of the things, and then you add in the additive manufacturing capability, you add in some of the AI-enabled tools that we use for sustainment down there. That's the value proposition of that regional sustainment hub to the Joint Force. Where does industry come in and partner with us? I mean, we sit in a pretty good neighborhood in that regard, right? So the Korean Defense Industrial Base, they want to be the third largest exporter of defense articles. That's what I believe is their stated goal. Don't make me speak for them on that one, but I believe that's been kind of said in the media. They've got a robust defense industrial base. So our ability to partner with them and to use that capacity, it's a little bit of rising tides raise all boats. So that we can leverage some of the things that they're learning, ingest them into our own defense ecosystem, and then challenge them with some of the things that we're learning, and and improve their own defense ecosystem. So when we look at that regional sustainment hub, it's more than just for Northeast Asia. It's more than just for Korea and Japan. It's that first island chain, and it's strategic flexibility that we offer. And tying in the Korean defense industry where we can, and helping them marry with our own defense industry and other allied defense industries, it just makes the capability there exponential.
Right. You know, you're talking about the first island chain, and I'm looking at Colonel German, and I'm thinking about the potential of the multi-domain task force. And General Brunson spoke about the need for a multi-domain task force within the Korean peace. Colonel German, as we look at how the MDTF has evolved and the capabilities that are resident there, and thinking about integration and synchronization of effects across all domains, what do you see here going forward and the possibilities as General Hilbert tries to marshal capabilities and best posture for the fight? How do you see yourself playing in that?
Yeah, it's one of our biggest challenges as we continue to innovate and bring on new capability. We have to do that in conjunction with our partners and allies and the Joint Force. So the speed with which we can potentially innovate may be faster than what our partners can or what the Joint Force is doing. And so you may go to an exercise, invest a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, training hard with them to come up and connect the technical ones and zeros, make sure the systems are talking to each other, in all the right ways, and then you come back 1 month later and things have changed again. That can be a real challenge. But what we've taken on is that's not just a challenge, that's an opportunity for us. Because as many of the senior leaders highlighted yesterday, we know we're going to have to do this in combat as well. And so we look at this as a way to continue to train our formation to quickly adapt, quickly integrate new capability, and bring our partners and allies alongside of us with as fast as we're going. While we're doing that, we do that not back in Hawaii, not back at Joint Base Lewis-McChord, but forward in the first island chain, continuously training through the 46 different exercises, over 14 countries that we partner with in various capacities, because that's the strength. We have to be there, we have to be present. That's what creates that credible deterrence that the MDTFs bring. And that's also what makes us better and more capable, being able to do that alongside of all of our partners and allies inside that first island chain and even the second island chain as well.
Terrific, terrific. Staying with this whole fight tonight piece, I'm coming to General Dugan with this one, sir. The tremendous partner that Japan is for us. Your familiarity with the culture, with the people, with their commitment, their resolve. You're thinking about how to take the relationship and build on it. As you think about operationalizing U.S. Army Japan, what does that mean to you, sir?
Well, thank you for the partnership with the JGSDF, those that have worked with them, the warfighting culture and climate, it's embedded across their entire Japanese self-defense force. So that's an easy start in the foundation. And I'll start with a framework of 3 priorities that my boss has laid out in people partnership and Prevail. The critical part is the Prevail. And Sergeant Major Langley and I have sat many days thinking about how do you establish the legacy of an organization, and both of us have experience standing up and converting organizations. And some may throw out, is it civilians, is it the equipment, is it the title, the motto? But every time we come back to the backbone of our Army, which is a non-commissioned officer corps, and I think that's what we can export, not just to the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force, because they have an amazing NCO corps that's continuing to grow, but other formations in different countries as well. So the first time since 1953, we are in the process of creating a warfighting culture. Right now, we're preparing and bringing in multi-domain operations. We've seen that in exercises. So about 50 pathway exercises that exist, 8 of them are in Japan. And we get to play the Exxon. We get to do this, and that's the climate that we're trying to create in United Army Japan. And every newcomer's brief is, we get to partner with the Japanese. In exercise, we get to partner with 19 countries. If it's a jump with 11th ID or other organizations, we get to do this. So being able to build that culture and climate alongside a self-defense force that has the same culture and climate, it's not hard. So can't take credit, because we have some great leaders here that used to be the USRJ CG. I bumped into another one yesterday. So it's been amazing. But I think that's the core. But practical terms, we've been able to allow our leaders to participate in multi-domain task forces, in higher headquarters, in United States Forces Japan. So if we fulfill our role as a set the theater, Title 10 responsibility, bilateral coordination, whatever extra we have, we push them into the exercise units to gain experience. Whether it's for our future as we transform, or whether it's for the benefit of the Army, where we have people exposed to multi-domain task forces, that's kind of the people part. As far as partnership, this is where our COCOM command has been amazing by allowing us to test and use the Indo-PACOM mission network. It's come a long way. Keen Edge, United States Forces Japan was able to use it. We're looking forward to use that in subsequent exercise in 2026 to have a common operating picture. And it's one of the most important parts and tools of being able to fight in any formation down at the tactical to, I would argue, strategic level, to have a common operating picture. And then JGSDF forces have trained on that. Our partners and allies are starting to train on that. So I think that is a key to operationalizing our headquarters and our role in Japan. And finally, the Prevail part. Earlier, I was just writing down some of the different things that, in the short period of time, 10 months, I've been able to see. Army has invested a lot in operationalizing this headquarters with people, but also with network system. We talked about IMN and equipment. We have a transportation battalion, sustainment group that has a watercraft battalion, and it's only continued to grow. We have an aviation battalion that has fixed-wing aircraft that supports leaders travel across the area. Salakanab in Philippines, we had a sustainment watercraft that directly supported that mission. So we take great joy as a supporting headquarters to be able to see the Joint Force succeed. And by continuing to operationalize United States Army Japan, we've been able to see successes. We had the Typhoon in Iwakuni from NDTF, supported that station in, and Joint Force allowed them to move out. Multi-domain task force, we've talked about that. And then a mission training network and center in Sagami Depot is amazing. And our close relationship with 8th TSC to be able to help build the distribution centers across the Pacific, specifically in Japan as well, to help the Joint Force. And obviously we're working with the Army preposition. Do we have the right set? Does it need to change? Do we need to exercise it versus being static? So all these discussions are percolated at the combatant command level, at the higher headquarters USAPAC, and not just USRJ, but conversations with our peers and boss and mentors around here. So really appreciate it. I think that's at least a start to operationalize it.
It absolutely is. And I think about interoperability. I think about the quest to achieve a common operating picture. And I say that I'm looking in your direction. General, you and I were exchanging names of mutual friends. And of course, both of us have operated on the eastern flank of Europe. You've seen partnership from the American perspective. You've seen it from the European perspective. Could you talk a little bit about what you've observed during your years, the challenges, and what might provide a little bit of a primer, if you will, on the way forward towards effective partnerships, sir?
Yeah, so fundamentally it's about relationships and trust, I think, and everything else kind of flows from there. I think we're all collectively, we understand more about what we need to do to share communications better. That ends up being a sort of fundamental challenge if our black boxes don't talk to each other. I think we're all a lot further on the journey about software and protocol-defined interoperability rather than worrying about buying the same pieces of equipment. I think that's heading in the right direction. I would offer there is and this is a European perspective, I don't know the detail about quite how this feels in the Pacific. The US is such a big dog in this conversation that everybody faces this, do we just try and link to America and follow, or do we have a more collaborative discussion which kind of slows everything down if we're not careful, but potentially gets to the right place? In my last job in 5th Corps, a defining feature of the beginning kind of 20%-ish of every big exercise, interoperability exercise, is non-American commanders trying to get on the same comms link for the battle rhythm. And the amount of times you're supposed to be having a detailed shared visualization discussion and someone is saying, I remember General Sean Banabi, many of you will know, is the sort of land component commander in an exercise. I'm circling Warsaw now, can anybody see my pen? For like 20 minutes of a 1-hour battle rhythm event. I think we're getting there in that, but trying to understand how, do we really mean what we say about some of this comms interoperability? And are we really gonna cross the bridge to understanding the risks that potentially we expose ourselves to, security, everything else, to really link into the sort of secure but unclassified conversation? I think we're heading in the right direction, better than we were, but it all comes down to, do you trust the person on the other end of the line? And shared experience is sort of the most important thing for that, I think.
No, absolutely, and I think we all subscribe to that. And then another thing that I was curious about, and we touched upon it just briefly, General, is the land training system and how that drives transformation across the Army. Could you expound a little bit about that?
Yeah, so all of our training, unsurprisingly, like many of armies around the world, is fundamentally in the context of what we're learning from our interactions with Ukraine at the moment. We're very fortunate. We got some good political permissions that allow us to have quite a lot of people quite far forwards in Eastern Europe, and we have a really good link now. It's taken us a while to get there, to feed that information directly back into the bloodstream, routine VTCs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to help us sort of define our training. And we're also very fortunate, it's just about kind of winding up now, but we've been our part in the training of Ukrainians has been training their brand new recruits, so civilian, and they come to us into the UK. We've trained north of 30,000 Ukrainians in the last sort of 4 or 5 years with the help of a number of other nations as well. The two things I think that we're really learning and I wouldn't say we're struggling with, these are real challenges. One is, how do you incorporate modernization fast enough? And do you need to build it on top of people still being able to fight with bayonets and grenades? In my view, you have to build it on top of that. That remains a non-negotiable requirement. There are some who would say drones, electronic warfare, tactical cyber will remove the need to use bayonets and grenades. I don't personally subscribe to that. But how do you build that on top of? And then how do you procure the equipment? Had a great conversation with an Israeli general recently, and they're clearly right at the front edge of learning fast in combat, particularly from a ground force perspective, about how do you integrate the equipment. And he said it's simple. If the equipment comes with an instruction manual, I'm not going to buy it, because people will not be able to learn it quickly enough. It's got to be like an iPhone, and I pick it up and I open it and everything's intuitive, and in a week I'm an expert. If it's not that, I'm not interested. Now, that's easy to say for some pieces of kit, difficult for an armored vehicle, but that's the type of direction that we want to try and go in. And then the other one, and we're not there yet, you end up having a difficult national conversation, is about, are we training for war or war fighting? And often people say war fighting, you can't move for armies talking about war fighting, and they think they mean war. Really, they mean battles, and they mean the battles that the professional army will fight in the first, if we're really honest, the type of wars that we're supposed to be preparing for, North Korea, China, Russia, the professional army's gone in 6 months. No two ways about it. Even if you do really well, it's gone in 6 months. So what do we do then? And what we're learning now from what what we're trying to work out how we take it forward from our experience of training Ukrainians from being civilian to in the front line in 6 weeks is what should we be doing there? And how does that affect the technical kit that we're buying and how long it takes to learn and how we're exploiting what people can do already from civilian street and so on and so forth. The trouble is to get to a really meaningful conversation about that, someone has to say the word conscription out loud. And then at that point, and I'm not trying to be too flippant, politically, understandably, that becomes too sensitive to take very much further forward in permission terms. So how do you modernize fast, and how do you upscale the volume of soldiers? Those are our two sort of key things we're thinking about.
That's very, very helpful, and particularly like the incorporated modernization over our individual and collective tasks. How do we build deliberately, and then how do we sustain our effectiveness as a force into a conflict? General Hilbert, coming back to you, sir, with regards to technical integration, and I think about how complex it is right now with our systems. And it's complex on both sides. Allies and partners have complex systems, so do we. But could you speak to what you're seeing with regards to common communication platforms and a shared network? I know it's just so imperative, again, the common operating picture, feeding it back into the bloodline, as General Kingsbury said. But what are your biggest hurdles? Technical, procedural, policy? What do you see in general?
Yeah, it's funny, as Ali was talking, and having lived a life that is both European and now in the Pacific, the struggles of interoperability that I saw in Europe, in an established alliance of, like that, they repeat themselves in the Pacific, right? And when we think about the fact that that pillar of interoperability, the technical pillar, right? So General Kim gave a great rundown of what is interoperability. Well, there's the human, the procedural, and technical. And in his view, the human was the most important, and I'd agree with him there. That's part of the trust. He described the procedural interoperability that we all learn as we go through different doctrinal excursions. But the long pole in the tent, having seen it in Europe and seen it in the Pacific, it remains the technical interoperability. The panel yesterday on AI and machine learning that had Estonia and Matt Skaggs from USFK, John Cogbill, Denise McPhail, and then gentleman from Manville. Matt Skaggs kind of talked about it a little bit of like, how do we get to a gray cloud? How do we get beyond the technical interoperability where there's the thing that connects to the thing and that the network, and because we end up chasing the let's connect all the boxes, which is a fool's errand in this, garden of different boxes that we have. And so how do we flatten it and get it into one space? And then what Matt was describing, I think he did a pretty good job yesterday of describing where we're thinking about it in terms of this gray cloud that allows you to enter at the permissions you're allowed to have, so that I don't have to worry about a cross-domain solution. It's almost it is in some senses a cloud-based cross-domain solution, though, if we use CDS and it's a very technical term, it's got a specific NSA definition, but we use this cloud to cross through the different domains that allow us to get in there. What are the limitations to it? The limitations have not changed. There's really, I don't believe, not an engineer, but there's not a technical limitation. Some of you have Samsungs in your pocket, some of you have iPhones. They all seem to work seamlessly together. And that's because those two companies want to make a profit. Therefore, they write operating systems that are compatible with each other. And we can send text messages back and forth. You can run different apps. I can run different apps. But somehow they magically seem to work together. So I don't believe that we have a technical problem. We don't have a coding problem. We do have a policy problem, right? So, but that policy's there for the right reasons, right? The circus ride analogy, you got to be this tall to ride the ride. And so, you've got to, if I'm going to let you access and share my data, you've got to, there does need to be a little bit of responsibility that says you'll be responsible with the data that I share, and I can trust you with that data. And so, I don't think we should go tabula rasa on the policy and just wipe it all out and, ride dirty, so to speak. But I think we've got to look at each other with our allies, and we've got to have that hard discussion that says, we can't share data with you because I can't trust your network because I know the vulnerabilities that are inside of it. And likewise, our allies owe us the candid and the frank conversation that says, I won't share my data with you because your networks aren't robust enough. I don't think you're going to be trustworthy with my data. And then once we have that good, candid conversation, we can then move a little bit further forward in that technical interoperability. I hope that answered your question.
No, it does. It sets it nicely for the rest of the discussion here. And it is so complicated. It's so many subtleties. And there's some realities we've got to acknowledge, like you said, General. Taken integration down a slightly different path, but no less important. I think about Colonel German, and he's operating at the tactical and the operational level. He obviously has strategic effect, but I also think about interoperability with joint, interagency, and multinational partners. And Wade, I was wondering if you could talk to that and what your thoughts are right now, and then aspirationally, how you see this thing improving over time.
Absolutely. So it is clearly one of the biggest challenges. The technical integration of systems today is more complicated than ever, whether that's from one company to the next, the same software to the next, the same version to the next, a coalition partner network that does or does not have the ability to pass the right data from one to the next. Where we're trying to get to is all sensors and all effectors. Any of my sensors that are out on the battlefield, I can immediately tap into and digitally seamlessly pass to any other effector out there, whether it's inside my formation with one of my long-range fires assets, and I keep that thread inside of my kill chain, whether that's to the joint partners or whether that's to a coalition of partners. That's where we want to get to. Obviously, we have a long way in some areas to go before we get there. But I would tell you, to General Hilbert highlighted this, the way we're overcoming that right now is through the interpersonal space. It's the partners, it's the people inside the formation. The 3rd Multi-Domain Task Force is incredibly privileged to have 5 Australian officers embedded in our formation that enables us to move very quickly. We have a habitual relationship with the 10th Aus Brigade, which is one of their brigades that they're bringing multi-domain capability to, and we're able to move exceptionally fast. We overcome that because we're not going back to another army. We're gaining and learning that what we're doing fast and seamlessly from the personnel that are embedded inside of my formation. Additionally, we provide 3 officers or 2 officers and an NCO to the 10th Aus Brigade. Again, that enables them to move that much faster. And then on top of all of that, 2 UK officers that are also embedded, or 3, correction, embedded in my formation as well. All of this is what's enabling us to overcome the technical challenges. While we work through that, it's clearly something we have to continue to solve. We need industry's help to do that. We need the policy changes to help us enable us to do that faster. But it's the people that are going to get that done, and we find that every single day. And by having those people inside our formation every single day working to solve those problems and not just meeting up at a specific exercise every 6 months is what enables us to move so much faster. Our units are getting better and faster. Our armies are getting better and faster.
Right. Thanks, Wade. General Dugan, staying with this line of thought, but again, looking at it perhaps from a different angle. Japan, undergoing significant defense transformation. What are you as a headquarters in U.S. Army Japan seeing as the outcomes of these changes? And then how are these changes impacting your partnership and operations?
Thank you. I think the changes is strengthened our resolve. It's focused us against a common operating picture, specifically starting with the threat. Again, I shared the experience in 2006, 20 years ago, talked about the threat. Now there's a lot more open, candid discussions, and how do we then collaborate? We have to figure out how do we work together in the personal space. We have to figure out how do we work together in an interoperability space, and I think that's why you see the rapid change. And how do we then set the scenarios in the exercises, from the conversations to the planning conferences to the tabletops to the pathways exercises across Japan. I think we've seen a lot of changes. As you've seen the United States Army grow in its set-the-theater capacity with watercraft, the Japanese Self-Defense Force also has the same amount of watercraft, similar amount of watercraft. And then starting this year, we're going to try to work those together to be able to do that. And we both recognize that there's not enough intramodal watercraft aircraft. So I think the defense industry acknowledges that. Both of our defense forces acknowledge that, and they put that in the forefront to figure out how do we do that. You know, whether it's purchasing more items, because there's a lot of different options. You can buy more, you could refit more, you can rent more, you could make it autonomous. So those are some of the ongoing discussions, and we see that in parallel as we work closely with them. And I think the network that INDOPACOM is allowing us to use in the exercise is very helpful. I think that's kind of what I'm limited to at the USRJ level, talking to the JGSDF folks.
Right. You know, this team of professionals here has spent their lifetime, their professional lives, setting conditions for the success of others. And, you know, partnership is a two-way street. We've got to be good partners, and we've got to set conditions for their success. So, General Hilbert, I'm thinking, how can the 8th Army empower our Iraq partners? How can we empower them to take the lead while ensuring the alliance is strong and capable? How do we find that balance?
Yeah, that's, you know, you kind of highlight the current discussions on OPCON transfer, which for us is obviously incredibly important, and then the balance between our national security strategy that tells us that the Republic of Korea will be responsible for the defense against North Korea, and that we'll provide critical but limited support. I think what's first to recognize is when you first hear that critical but limited support, there may be some reticence that says we're backing away. That's absolutely not the case. What it's saying is that we're going to allow you to focus on the things that you can do so that we in the United States can provide those critical capabilities that you don't have to then enable that. So that, this is about building capability and building capacity. It is absolutely not about taking that capacity away. So where does 8th Army fit into it? I look at it as my role as the 8th Army commander to, I've got responsibilities to both nations. I've got to provide trained and ready Army forces for my Joint Force Commander, General Brunson, so that in the time of crisis, he gets a ready package that he can employ, and he can consume the readiness that I've built as an Army Service Component Command. When I look at my role with the Republic of Korea Army, I've got to look at how do I help them build the capacity and the capabilities that they need to take on those roles, so that then I can reach into things like the multi-domain task force and, again, the regional sustainment hub, some of our medical networks, and provide those critical but limited those critical capabilities that are not resident in the ROK Army or that aren't resident yet, and how do I provide those critical enabling capabilities to allow them to do the defense of the peninsula. So I think that's what we provide. I provide those trained ready forces for the Joint Force Commander. I provide trained ready forces where I can reach in and pull in the Joint Force in support of the land component, and then we together, as I said at the beginning, that we live and breathe this kachi-kapchi-da mindset all along, and it's no different with OPCON transfer. What do I have to do to go together to help build that capability within the Republic of Korea Army?
Great. General Kingsbury, staying with that same thought and driving the pace of modernization, the anticipated arrival of the British Army's strategic training partner, what will it have on its ability to use its training to drive transformation? How do we accelerate change, sir?
Yeah, so I think I'm picking up a bit on General Hilbert's point. We often talk about partnerships being sort of side by side, and I think, and this is a commercial relationship that we're about to enter in the British Army's training world, but I think the point is the same. To me, it's more, and I think some of that Korea stuff brings this out, it's more about layers and how each one builds on each other, and everybody brings something slightly different to the conversation. I think about Estonia, from my last job with 5th Corps, but also where the UK has quite significant forward land forces investment. Now, the Estonian army has certain capabilities, some good, some weaker than others. But it has a phenomenal territorial defense force and the capabilities and the knowledge that they bring, whether you start talking about sabotage in combat or just a slightly sort of more nuanced intelligence conversation. And then you put on top of that the American presence there, which is not just the American troops, but the foreign military sales for HIMARS going into Estonia, and then the British contribution and the French contribution and so on and so forth, and then the NATO stuff on top of that. You just get these layers, each of which adds to the other if you get it all right. In our contract conversation, we're trying to work really hard with we're not quite there on the sort of political money stuff, and when I get home we might have a different prime minister, so that might all get slower, but we'll see. Fingers crossed, we're almost there. We're trying to build a real collaboration. So it's not just the Army and the contractor. There's shared equity all the way up, all the way down to every single meeting has got to have both parties in it. The decisions are being made collaboratively. It's not the Army makes the decisions and then tells the contractor what to do. And I think you can apply that to all of these partnership conversations. And if you take a view that everybody has shared equity in it right from the beginning, then all of the transformation and modernization and the technical interoperability and the relationships and everything else can sort of grow together. It's sort of easy to describe. It doesn't always sort of work that way, but that's the sort of our aspiration.
Art and science, art and science. Coming back to you, Colonel German, in the same way that leaders habitually ask the real players in the formation, what do I need to do to make a real difference for you? And how do I enhance your ability to make an effort and to make an impact, I should say? Looking ahead, what will have the greatest impact on your ability to conduct multi-domain operations in a contested environment? I know that's a loaded question, but I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on that, Wade.
Yes, sir. I look at it through three lenses right now. I'm continually looking at assessing our people, our capability, and then the authorities that go along with those. So first on the people, over about 119 different military operational specialties inside of the MDTF currently, inside the 3rd MDTF. That is a lot. It's a lot of people with a lot of very special training that is required. They have to get the right certifications. In many respects, it's not just Army training that they require. They require Navy certifications to employ Navy systems or Navy missiles from Army systems from the land, but we have to get the Navy certification. We send them to Navy schools. Same with the Air Force for targeting capabilities. All of that has to be done in conjunction while we are out operating in the Indo-Pacific and training in exercises. So there's a fine balance that has to go along with that, making sure that our people come to us trained and that we can continue to keep them trained to employ the next portion of it, which is our capability. We have to have the right capability to affect all of the domains. We can't just say we're multi-domain. We have to actually be able to affect each one of those domains from inside of our formation. That's what makes a MDTF so powerful, is the ability to do that with our people and the capability, the systems. Obviously, we need partners to help us and assist us with that. We need the leveraging the tech companies and things to give us that capability in a timely manner, and we continue to iterate on those, but that's the right piece. If I have the right people trained with the right capability, then we can start talking about the right authorities, which is one of the most challenging pieces, and my bosses do a tremendous job helping me with that so that they make sure that with our special capability, we are able to affect the right domain with the right system, and that authority is delegated down to the appropriate level to be able to do that so that I can be fast and efficient and effective to support the Joint Force Commander when required.
Great. No, the authorities piece, you're not done with that problem set, you know, and thanks for the effort that both you and your supporting commands and supported commands are taking. So thank you. Looking at the watch there, or the clock in front of me, I recognize that time has slipped away a bit. So I'm gonna segue into closing statements, gentlemen. General Dugan, I apologize for putting you first into the breach, but over to you, sir, for your
I'm sure
thoughts.
General Hilbert paid you off. It's a close family friend. This is the first LANPAC, and it did not disappoint. I think you notice that the common theme in all of this is the people. And we talk about relationships as a pacing item. For those that don't know what that means, the pacing piece of equipment is the most important piece of equipment in formation. And for everything that we talked about, the relationship is the pacing item that requires investments. It requires maintenance. It requires initiative. And I think we've seen that a lot easier for places like United States Army Japan, where we've had relationships since 1945, as USARJ, 1953, and the previous 40 commands have spent a lot of time investing in the relationships, and we have a lot of programs that continue to develop that. So really appreciate the opportunity from AUSA to General Brown, General Clark to allow us to highlight. If we had more time, I'll do a sales pitch and tell you how great Camp Zama is and come visit Japan. But the relationship is second to none, and I could not ask for a better opportunity. Thanks, sir.
Terrific. Thanks, James. General Kingsbury?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what he said. So relationships as a pacing item, I couldn't have said it more. I think the only thing I'd add is that this isn't just about people being nice to each other, about nations. It's not about just being altruistic. I mean, there's definitely a bit of that, and all of those relationships will always end up in that direction. But it's fundamentally about, in all of our own self-interest. If you're not good at relationships and you don't have systems and people and structures and processes you can rely on in crisis, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So even if you find people who aren't as wedded to the idea as those of us who sort of live and breathe these conversations, you can make a really strong argument that these relationships matter purely from a self-interest perspective. They are vital to combat capability. Thank you again, Mike, for having me.
Pleasure having you, General. Colonel German.
Yes, sir. The FDTFs are an incredibly powerful and amazing formation. Very privileged to be a part of it for my time here. We are one of those unique units that provides capability from the land to the joint force, that credible deterrence that we create being out in the Indo-Pacific, training alongside our partners and allies continuously. It's an absolute privilege. We could not do it alone without our joint partners and without our coalition partners, and so we continue to do that on behalf of the USPAC commander in the Indo-Pacific.
Terrific, terrific. General.
Yeah, Mike and to AUSA, thanks again for the opportunity to be up here. As you've all mentioned, the power of people and relationships, you know, what it does is it drives us to get better. What Ali Kingsbury didn't mention when Eric Carrillo was going to kill both of us was, you know, the four-eyeball conversation that he as the DCG had to have with me as a Divarti commander, where candidly my priorities weren't right. Why could he do it? I remember it very clearly, Ollie. But it was the right conversation to have, because where there's trust, there's accountability, and there's the accountability to train at the right level and to be in the right space, and that's what we can do across this land power network. We build the relationships so that we push ourselves, each of us, to be better than we were the day before. So it's a real pleasure to be here. I'll put in the shameless plug. I won't put it in for Camp Zama, but I'll tell you in a few minutes, I think 8th Army's got, but it's a lovely place, Camp Zama. We will be in the Warriors Corner, and if you've got some questions about, you know, what we're doing down the tactical level, I've got Scott Carpenter from 19th ESC, Ro Clemente from the 35th, and Edgar Arroyo from our medical brigade there that are going to be able to, that can answer some of those real pointed questions on what are they doing at the tactical level to drive transformation and to drive change on the peninsula, and how we're thinking about things differently. And so I look forward to seeing you down there, and I look forward to seeing all of you as we continue to kind of mingle through LANPAC 2026.
Great. Perfect words to close by. Where there's trust, there's accountability. And that speaks to the importance of what you gentlemen do. Thank you so much for your participation today.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
A wonderful discussion, gentlemen. Thank you. We will now take a 30-minute break. Please join us for refreshments in the Hawaii Ballroom as well as the Honolulu Suite. Please note, in the Honolulu Suite, there are exhibitors, so please check those out. And we will return here at 11:25 for the rest of the program for today. Thank you.